Welcome to the Rise Above Show presented by Roofcon. My name is Diego Dante, and I'm thrilled to bring you inspiring conversations with some of the most innovative and bright minds in our industry. From business and entrepreneurship to personal development and growth, we'll explore the strategies, insights, and stories that have helped our guests rise above challenges, overcome adversity, and achieve their goals. So sit back, relax, and join us on this journey of empowerment, inspiration, and discovery. This is the Rise Above Show. Welcome to the Rise Above Show presented by Roofcon. My name is Diego Dante. I am here with my friend Matt Grasmyer of Hailtrace. Matt and I have known each other for a little bit, and we've talked about doing a podcast for a little while, and finally making it happen. So, Matt, how you doing, brother?
I'm good, man. I'm good.
Do you remember the first time that we met in person?
Was it at Roofcon?
Roofcon 2020.
Okay.
You were setting up a truck.
Oh,
I think that was the first time that you guys had rolled out the new hail chasing truck. Yeah. And the first thing you said to me was, "Hey, I like your shoes." And then I said, "Oh, thanks, they're KDs." And then you said, "Oh, I don't like them anymore."
I vaguely remember that. Oh, man. Yeah, I've matured a little bit since then. But here in Oklahoma City, KD is kind of for the lack of a better term, a curse word. You know, kind of left us high and dry.
He wasn't for a little while, right? And now, the last few years, probably not. Probably doesn't want to show face in OKC much.
Yeah, probably not. I'm sure he'd be fine. There's some crazy people here, but I'm sure he'd be okay. But yeah, that's probably why I said that. It's still fresh.
Man, I remember that last conference finals that he played against the Warriors. I believe that was the last year he was there.
It was,
and
yeah.
I was cheering for the Thunder, and that was crazy. That was wild. So are you guys big Thunder? I'm guessing you guys are big Thunder fans in the Grassmyer household.
Yeah, growing up in Oklahoma, there's no pro teams until we got a taste of the NBA with the New Orleans Hornets, and then the town just went basketball crazy. So when we got the Thunder, it was a lot of fun, and they really sucked for a few years, but then they got good, and then that culminated in the 2012 finals and the 2016 Western Conference Finals. But yeah, we love the Thunder.
Cool.
Big Rumble fans in the house. Got 2 kids who love Rumble, so yeah.
Sweet. Well, all right. So tell me a little bit. Let's talk about Hailtrace for a moment, and then we'll get to know Matt a little bit. So you are with Hailtrace. You guys have a hail mapping software. Tell me a little bit about Hailtrace. How did you end up at Hailtrace too? Have you been there from the beginning? I just want to get to know, what's the relationship there with you and Hailtrace?
Yeah, I've been at Hailtrace for 7.5 years. I started here as the director of operations. When I got here, there were 7 of us. In 2016, beginning of 2016, I kind of just randomly ended up here. I've known Derek and his family for a while, but really I knew his wife through church. I used to work at a church that his wife worked at, and I was working for an oil and gas company in the accounting department, and I knew that I didn't want to be there long term. I'd been through 3 layoffs to that point. I was still kicking it. And then I saw this random posting on Facebook that Derek posted needing a director of operations. And I was like, I'm not qualified for that. But my wife was like, what's the worst that can happen? Like, he doesn't call you? Like, okay, what's it going to take you? 30 minutes to get this all done? So I did it and got an interview. And, I guess, as they say, the rest is history. Here I am. 7.5 years later, we've grown from 7 employees, making, just over $400K a year to almost 30, making $4 or $5 million a year, which is a lot of fun, a lot of fun times growing. And yeah, that's
it's cool,
kind of
man.
my story here in a nutshell.
Yeah. So how did you know, how Hailtrace is such an interesting topic to me because, I didn't grow up in the industry. So I remember when I first got into the industry, it was like the first software that was thrown at me, like, hey, we got this software that we use that shows you, where the last hailstorms have been, and so you know where to
storm chasing. Quickly found out that wasn't a feasible business model. And then somebody he knew asked him to create a map of a hailstorm here in Oklahoma City. I want to say it was May of 2010. Hopefully nobody at Hailtrace is going to fact check me on this. But they said, man, that's really good. And he decided that he would try his hand at just starting to make those by hand. And he started selling those to local roofing companies and then started going to some trade shows and picked up some momentum. And, here we are. That was 2010. Here we are 13 years later, one of the leaders in the industry, what we do. So it all just started with a random, I think I could do this.
How has your role shifted? Because you're not still doing operations, right? So how has your role shifted at Hailtrace?
Yeah. So when I came in, operations for 6.5 years, really loved that. Really learned a lot doing that, learning how to run a business and all the things that go into that, and the little details here and there, and putting out fires. It's a lot of fun. But over the course of the last 6.5 years, we've had some conversations, from time to time where, we've always had a good online machine, Facebook following where, when storms are happening, we get leads coming in pretty efficiently. We've never been a great, what we'd call we can scale and see if we can grow even more by putting together an outside sales team. So that's kind of how that shifted. That started earlier this year. So 2023.
So you guys were really good at, you said catching. This is interesting. I love this analogy. So you guys are really good at catching. You said, all right, we've spent the last however long working on catching all the people. They're inbound. Then you've realized, all right, we want to expand a little bit, go out and start doing some of the hunting, which would be the outward. I had this conversation with a company that I did a podcast with a little while ago, and I said, do you know what's the 3 ways that cavemen caught their food? And I said there was the spears, there was the nets, and there was the seeds. And so in the same way, you've got, as a business owner, you've got to figure out what's the strategy for you to be able to get that next sale, right? Because that's your food. And so I said the spears is the hunting, right? You are going out, you are finding the food that's out there, and you are going out and getting it. The nets is you are catching what's coming in.
Right.
And then the seeds is the referrals. It's a business you're doing today. You're doing a good job with it, and you're planting those seeds that are going to bring you more food in the future. You can focus on one of these things, and you'll probably have a level of success with it. The companies that start to become really successful are going to be the companies that then start expanding from there and start finding ways to be able to not just do one of the things, but two of the things. A lot of companies don't typically go out and do all three of the things. You can typically be really, really successful doing just two of those things. But think about how powerful your lead generation machine can become if you do focus and set up a strategy to be able to do the hunting, do the catching, and do the referrals.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And I think that's, when I say catching, like, storms happen. People are like, oh, storm's here. I need something. I know Hailtrace exists. Let me give them a call. And with our, online presence, a lot of our sales for a long time came from Facebook generated leads. Like people would just, they'd find us on Facebook and they'd go, here, let me give them a call. But when you live in an environment where you go to all these trade shows, and I love all the trade shows we go to, but you can get into a rhythm where you're running into a lot of the same people, and you can fall into this trap of thinking, all right, we have talked to everybody in the industry. We've probably got a really good grip on the industry. We own a large market share of the roofing industry, and okay, that's great. Then you start to peel back some of those layers and you realize, oh, we actually only probably have about 5 to 7% of the roofing industry, of the available market there. And so that kind of daunting, but at the same time, it's like, man, what a really great opportunity for us to grow and put ourselves out there and start to talk to people who've never even heard of us. And it's a regular occurrence for me now, where I talk to people that I've never even heard of Hailtrace. Couldn't even tell you what who they are. And so that's a lot of fun. But I agree with you. Yeah, if you can start to cultivate some of those different areas, man, you can be really successful for sure.
It's so funny how that happens too, because we think a similar thing of, I see the people that will purchase tickets to their show, or heck, the amount of people we've got in our Facebook group. We've got 27,000 people in our Facebook group. I feel like we've got a wide audience on social media. And then I'll go to IRE and I'm like, oh, there's one person I know, and there's one person I know over there. But then there's, if I might know 50 people at the show, there's still another 900 or 9,950 people that I don't know there, right? And that's really humbling for me, because it's like, okay, well, we still haven't done our job.
Well, it's yes and no, because it's still like, okay, we've still got room for growth.
100%, yeah.
But it's also kind of like you said, it's humbling. So you can look at that and go, cool. Still got a long way to go. Still got a lot of learning to do. But at the same time, like, guys are not that old. That's still a pretty good 20. You said 27,000.
Yeah, 27,000 people in our Facebook group.
That's a good following for sure.
Oh, 100%.
That's a lot of Kool-Aid. That's a lot of Kool-Aid to make.
A lot of Kool-Aid. We got a lot of gallons to bring this year.
I don't know how you guys are going to do it. I'll be interested to see the logistics play out there. So
we might have some cool new swag coming to Roofcon this year.
Ooh,
so I don't want to say much, but
fair enough.
But come to Roofcon if you want some special swag.
Yeah.
So okay, how has the vehicle helped you guys? This is maybe just a dumb question. Has the vehicle helped you guys generate leads? Because I feel like everyone wants to go look at the Hailtrace truck because it's just so cool.
Yeah, I think so. It kind of depends on the setting. Like, it's not, we're not driving it around town and getting roofers to call the office because they saw our truck. But when you put it in a trade show, it's cool. People want to come. It's in that kind of setting for sure. It definitely helps generate traffic for sure. It's a great conversation starter, especially because our team, they actually go chase hailstorms. And so it's not just for show. Like, it's a functional vehicle that goes out and gets dirty and gets banged up. And, we've got a team of guys that actually station. And so they're part of that team that do so.
I think your mic is cutting out a little bit. I'll let you know if we keep having issues with that.
Gotcha.
So I'll post a picture of the truck here on the screen right now. Yeah. We had to get it special ordered. It took like 8 weeks for the materials to get here because I was picky with the color and whatever else, but man, well worth it. So
Nice.
anyway, all right. So let me ask you a couple of more personal questions because here's the thing with the Rise Above show is we love talking about business, how to scale your business, all that stuff. I really wanted to make the theme of the podcast be like, how do you rise above, not just in business, but also in your personal life and just in all aspects of life, right? And this is why join the business that you're at today.
Ooh, I think when I first joined the business, probably the lack of knowledge and probably imposter syndrome. I felt very underqualified. Luckily, some patience and some grace was granted to me, and the license to fail. But yeah, definitely lack of knowledge and imposter syndrome. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, where you feel like, man, one day somebody's going to find out that I'm a fraud. And we could play these mental games with ourselves, but at the end of the day, like, just come to work, and I would just try to learn as much as I could and just fight through it. And I think just getting after it, not dwelling and sitting in that feeling, and just moving past it and going and doing the work to get there.
I heard the best piece of advice for this very recently on a YouTube video. Someone said the best way to overcome imposter syndrome is to start stacking up enough wins to where there is an undeniable amount of proof that you are who you say you are. And that does not come quickly. It is something that I think a lot of us have to deal with, right? I feel like I still have thoughts like this from time to time. I definitely don't think that I think that way as much anymore. But I do think that for me it has been, hey, you do the thing enough times, in your mind you are who you say you are, and you do get to the point where you're not having to question that in your own mind. Hey, are people going to, am I qualified for this? Am I this and that? No, like, I did the work. I got the results.
Yeah.
We grew as a company. We did this. I've seen results in my personal life. I've seen results in this and this and that. And you get to a point where you look back and you're like, oh man, I haven't even had those thoughts now for months or whatever else.
Yeah, I think I look at those as like standing stones. Like the Bible talks about standing stones. And when the Israelites would come and achieve a victory, obviously God gets the glory there, but they stack stones to go, okay, when we come here, we're going to remember this. I think that's true in our personal life too. Like you're saying, like if you stack enough wins up, that can be a standing stone. Write those victories down. I think the biggest thing for me was this book called Beginner's Pluck by Liz Bohannon. Great book. Is this girl from the United States that wanted to be a global reporter, went to Africa through a series of events, started a business to help local African girls get out of their impoverished village and go to college and make something of their life. She talked about like how she felt that same way, but like, she always had this feeling of like, okay, I just succeeded because it's beginner's luck. And then that turned into it, like her book being called Beginner's Pluck, because she just kept going. And we should always be looking for those opportunities because we're always in a cycle of learning, right? And so that like there's 4 phases of learning, and one is unconscious incompetence. You don't know what you don't know, right? So like you start something new, you're an idiot. You have no idea. And I've been in there several areas of my life. Then the second one is conscious incompetence. You know that you don't know anything. And then you go to conscious competence, where okay, you're starting to feel it out. You're starting to get the hang of it. You're starting to flow in this new thing, and you're learning a lot, and you're starting to get good at it. And then the fourth, final stage of that learning phase is unconscious competence, where it just becomes natural, so like breathing. And so I've found that if I'm stuck in, or if I feel like I'm in phase 4, probably should look to get out of that, or I've got some blinders on. And so we should always be looking to be in one of those phases, and we should always be looking to learn something. So it's kind of where I've landed in a lot of ways, to be just looking to grow all the time. So.
Hey, what's up, guys? I can't believe you missed it. Roofcon 2023. I know you probably think they're all the same, but I'm promising you they're not. I go from the West Coast to East Coast, North, South to all of these. This one is hyper special to me. The energy, the people, the presenters, this is unlike any event I've been to. This one means a lot to me, and it's crazy. You weren't here. You missed it.
I had a funny experience where when I first joined the Roofcon team, I had been working for Hunter at Cornerstone at his roofing company. But when he decided to launch Roofcon, he knew that my background was in business development. And so he needed someone to come in and start working doing marketing. And so I came in, and he hired me to come in and do it. And one of the first things was like build the Roofcon website, or build. It wasn't even that. It was to build a funnel that we were building for an ad. And at the time, I was like, I don't know anything about the first thing about building a funnel, right? And so I remember I was like, in theory, I guess I understand what needs to happen, but in practicality, I don't actually know how to do this. And so he found a like Alex Becker course at the time. It was a while back, but he found an Alex Becker course on like building funnels, and he got it for me. And it was like a 6-week course, and I did it in, I want to say like 7 days or something like that. Cause I was like, I need to get this done. And
I need to know how to do this yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. And so part of that in saying all this is the desire too, because I feel like I really had the desire of like, hey, I need to learn how to do this, obviously, to be able to do this job that I don't know how to do. I understand, building a community, doing business development, and going out and talking to people at trade shows and strategic partnerships and that kind of stuff. But on the digital side, like I'm not really, like, it's just not my forte, or wasn't at the time, to where now this year it's crazy because I built the entire Roofcon website from scratch.
Nice.
And we've had last year total, we're at like, I want to say 4,000. We're 4 times the amount of visitors this year already, 41 days out from the show, than we had the entire year last year. And so I'm just looking at these things like, man, like just how full circle we've come from like not being able to build a simple funnel to being able to build a full website and have it convert better than some of the other websites we've had and all that we've like paid money for,
That's amazing. If you want to figure it out, you will figure it out. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, you won't. And like, unfortunately, there's been times in my life where, I can look back and go, yeah, I just didn't want to figure that out. I didn't want to put the work in to do that. One
of my like almost core, it's not an official core value, but I feel like this is a core value for you to work for me, is you have to be what my friend Eric Obram calls, be a figure outer. Like, I need you to be a problem solver. Yeah. So yes, 100%. Like that for me is one of the biggest pieces. If you're going to come work on our team is you have to be a problem solver, and you can't be someone that just has every solution spoon-fed to them. And so I'm super proud of my team, because when you go and you find a bunch of problem solvers, you can get a bunch of stuff done.
You need a bunch of vanilla ices running around.
Yeah.
If there's a problem, they'll solve it, right?
That all spun from question number 1. So question number 2.
Right on.
What is the last book that you've read / what is the best book that you've read? And I'm going to keep it within like the business / personal development side.
Oh, okay. The last business / personal development book that I read. Man, I've read several books this year, but none of them have been. I don't think any of them have been personal development. So
all right, let's take that caveat out then. What is the last book that you read, and what is the best book that you've read?
The last book that I read, I'm gonna sound like a huge nerd. It's called The Crucifixion of the King of Glory. It's by a doctor. Her name is Eugenia Constantinou. It's up there, one of the best books I've ever read. It's probably not the best book I've ever read, but it is about Christ's final week on earth, and she goes into the historical context, and it's a very powerful look at his final week leading up to his crucifixion. So it's really good. The best book I've ever read, man, that's a good one. Probably first one that comes to mind is probably Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. That's a hard book to read. If you're honest with yourself, like that's a really hard book to read. I've taken a lot from that, so I'd say that's up there for sure. That's
one of the books. Hunter has given us a book that the entire team needs to read within like their first 6 months. He just gave us this, and that is on the list. I started reading the book. I'm not a big like war story guy. It's just I've just never been in those situations, so I feel like it's maybe a little hard for me to follow. And it starts out with that, and so I never made it past the first story. But I will be reading that here soon because I got to get through those books. So I'm excited to read that one once I get past the first little bit.
Get past it, because there's a lot of ways that it talks about business context. He obviously has some consulting that he does, and he brings a lot of those stories in there. It's a really good book for sure.
We tried to get him at Roofcon this year, but he wasn't available. So I feel like that would have been a really, really good Roofcon get.
That would be a really good Roofcon get. Yeah, he's great.
Y'all know we're all about the not super, I feel like most of our speakers are like got nothing to do with roofing. But all that to say, like, we get a lot of compliments on our speakers because it is different. So
you guys bring in some good ones.
We had Craig. I know you have some connections with Craig Rochelle, people that at least maybe go to his church or something along those lines, right?
I used to go to his church. In fact, I had a few of his kids in some of my church stuff. We've known the Groschels for a while.
Yeah.
My wife actually went to that church when Life Church first started. She was in that church, so yeah.
Yeah, that's cool, man. So, all right. So the next question is, what is the best piece of business advice that you've ever been given?
Best piece of business advice. I would say this is a piece of advice. I actually learned this in college, and I didn't think it was business advice. I thought it was just something that I had to learn for my degree. I have a degree in communication. But it has been the best advice that I've ever received. And it is listen to understand instead of listening to respond, and asking questions. Listen to understand and then ask questions. And I think, man, we could probably solve a lot of problems if we just remembered that. Because think about, when things get heated and there's arguments or debates, most people are they're listening, and as they're formulating how they're going to respond or how they're going to combat that statement that's about to come out of that person's mouth, or that is coming out of that person's mouth. And so when I practice listening to understand, I'm able to help more people. I'm able to be more successful from a business standpoint. And I get a lot out of that. And then Hailtrace benefits from that as well. But that's also a life. I mean, I think that's a life practicality advice too. Like that helps me in my personal life, marriage, parenting, friendships, all of it. So
yeah,
I don't always get it right.
Yeah, no. It's that's definitely one of the big things that I've had to work through. I read the book, what is it called? Everyone Communicates If You Connect. I think that's what it's called, by John Maxwell. And he, because I've realized I've had to work through, trying to become a better communicator. In fact, that was a goal of mine in the last, I believe it was in 2021. I set that as a goal for myself, and I was like, I don't even know how to measure this, but I know that, like, vision-wise, I want to become a better communicator. And frankly, that was even one of the reasons for even starting a podcast. I was like, if I start a podcast, I'm going to get better at having these conversations because I'm being mindful about the way I'm speaking, the way I'm listening. And I realized that was a huge issue with me at the beginning. Was sometimes I would ask questions and I was just ready for the next question to ask, right? I was like, okay, let him get through this. And sometimes I'd realize I'd get through the end of the conversation. I was like, I don't even know what happened in this interview because I was being a terrible listener. To where now part of like what's been the mental shift for me has been, okay, when I ask questions, let me really try to listen intently and figure out how we can now have a conversation. Now, how does that translate into every other aspect of my life where I realized I was doing the same thing where, I don't know how many times everyone else has had this happen where your wife will say, well, you remember what we're doing later today, right? Or whatever. I'm like, yes, I definitely remember, right?
I'm gonna plead the fifth on that.
Yeah. But even not just, also in sales in general, like, dude, you're trying to, if you're trying to sell to someone, it's how important is it to be able to listen to their concerns? And a lot of the times, what I've realized is we just go into some of these scenarios ready to just word vomit, right? And just start throwing out a bunch of what we think are solutions to the problems before we even get to hear the problems, right? Yeah. And I think we become a lot better communicators, salespeople, partners in life, all these things when instead of having preconceived solutions to problems, we just listen. And then if it's appropriate, we throw out a response with a solution. A lot of times people just want you to listen to them, right?
Oh, for sure. For sure. I think I'm a huge Ted Lasso fan. That's one of my favorite shows of all time. And I know it wasn't I don't think it was Walt Whitman that said this, but there's a part in one of the episodes, first season of Ted Lasso, where he's talking about he attributes the quote to Walt Whitman. Again, I don't think it's Walt, but he says, "Be curious, not judgmental." And I really love that, because if you're really curious about somebody, and you don't have to, like, I could talk to somebody who's really into, I don't know, chess. I'm not a huge chess fan, but I don't have to be curious about chess. I just need to be curious about that person. And that, you can't fake that, and that's contagious. And if you take those into your business dealings and your business relationships and your sales calls, or whatever business situation you're in, like, you're going to be more successful, because leaders show their worth not by the information that they give, but the information that they can receive and then do something with. So, like, we call it, we use this company called Sandler, and they call it spilling the candy on the lobby floor. And that's that word vomit. Like, hey, here I am. Hailtrace does this. It's just, feature blasting, where you listen for 5 minutes, you might understand, okay, they actually just need this one thing, and if I had just vomited all over the place, that would have been lost in the shuffle, and they'd have said, no, I don't, this is too overwhelming, I don't need this.
Yeah, that's what your
So
website's for.
be curious.
Just put all the
Yeah.
info on the website, so when people are looking for it, they can go and find it.
Right. For sure.
I know this is on this same topic. One of the goals that coming back to Roofcon this year, I think most people know, I left the team April of last year, rejoined January 1st of this year, and me coming back this year, I felt like one of the things I needed to do was really listen in on some of the stuff, some of the feedback from last year. And we actually had a conversation earlier this year where, I'll just be frank, I think there was stuff where we missed the mark on some things last year. And I had about 10 to 15 different conversations with different people who, I will say, like, we've got a ton of people that were just, I've got 100 testimonials that are like, man, this is the best show ever. I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't paint a good picture. Because if I just think everything's great, then all of a sudden I just think everything's great and we just keep doing some of these things. We don't change anything. Okay, well, let me find 10 to 15 people that maybe had maybe not negative, but just a less than desirable experience. And I sought out those people, and I had, 10, 15 different conversations with people. And man, the feedback that we got from that was great, because for me, it was, now I know the things that we need to change for the people that had a less than desirable experience. And I hope you don't mind me sharing that, but
No,
but I have two big sticky note pages on my window in my office that are just all the negative feedback that we received from the show. And so the entire planning for this year, most of it's pretty, automatic. We've already done the show in the same space with the same vendors this is 3 years in a row. So a lot of it's automatic. But a lot of the big changes have just been listening into the feedback, figuring out solutions for those things, putting those things into place, fixing those issues, so that way next year we're working on new problems. Because if you're working on the same problems now 2 years in a row, then you didn't listen the first time, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like personal development. If you can look at yourself 5 years ago and you're the same person, like you've got some issues. I should be able to look at myself 5 years ago and go, man, that guy, yeah, golly, who was that guy? Because I've grown, I've gotten better. So I think that's awesome. And kudos to you guys for getting the feedback. And I was happy to be a part of that. I think we had a great conversation.
Yeah.
About that. So.
Yeah, I think it's so funny because looking back at it from being on the roofing side, I definitely had the experiences where I'm just like, where I've received like so last year, those 9 months where I was running a roofing company, I think we got, my numbers might be off, but it was 60 reviews that we got on Google. One of those was negative. And my entire feedback to that was just, oh, well, they were just a terrible client. About the one person that left me a negative review. Versus, now looking back on it, I'm like, okay, well, that person was a terrible client. However, was there something that we could have learned from this situation so that that doesn't happen again in the future? I think there's a lot to be learned in that. All that to circle back around and say that I agree with your point that listening to understand and not just listening to respond is a huge piece of business advice that I think a lot of us need to look inwardly and say, hey, is this something that we're doing? Is this something that we need to work on? So I have one last question for you. And my last question, it's kind of a fun question, is if you had a business exit tomorrow, you had $1 billion deposited into your bank account, what would the next 24 hours look like for Matt Grasmyer and his family?
Okay, so let me understand this. Make sure I understand this right. Okay, I've had a
race, but you get $1 billion in your bank account. So you're not going into work tomorrow. What do the next 24 hours look like?
It's going to be really boring. Probably would sleep in, hang out with the kids. We wouldn't do any schoolwork. And we'd probably just go have some fun, go do something around Oklahoma City that they enjoy and just spend time as a family. No, that's really boring.
I love
So
that response.
I apologize.
I call out a bunch of people on that question because a lot of people be like, "Oh, I'd be back to work the next day." I'm like, "No, you wouldn't.
No way.
There's no way."
I mean, I think
There's
idle
$1 billion
hands-
of the B.
Yeah.
Like,
Idle hands can get you in some trouble for sure. And I think we were designed to work. And I think doing something and creating things and working, like, I think that is just part of how we are created. But
24 hours, that's all I'm saying.
20
I'm trying to get
20
really
24
specific.
hours?
The
Yeah.
next 24 hours.
yeah, the next 24 hours, it would be 24 hours for sure spent with my wife and 2 kids. No question.
Yeah. Well, Matt, I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today. Last thing I'm going to say on here for the people listening, we really appreciate you sticking around, listening to this whole thing if you have. And if you haven't gotten your tickets to Roofcon yet, we encourage you to go ahead and get those. Matt's going to be there with Hailtrace. I don't know if Matt's actually going to be there, but I know that Hailtrace will be there.
I'm not sure yet, but Hailtrace will definitely be there.
Hailtrace will be there. The expo is going to be great. We're going to have a bunch of different vendors there. We're going to have great keynotes there. A lot of stuff centered around scaling your business, personal development. I mean, all the different topics that you want to hear about, all the fun topics that people are talking about, tech and AI, private equity, like all the up-and-coming things that are happening in the industry. You don't want to miss out on this event. If you don't want to go to the conference and you just want to come in and whatever you want to do, go talk with vendors. Expo tickets are 100% free. So you can come in to the expo 100% for free. Get your tickets at roofcon.com. If you want to purchase tickets to the conference, you can do that at roofcon.com. Also, you can see all the speakers, all the vendors, all of that. But it's going to be a great show. Get your tickets. If you're not in the Facebook group, join the roofing and solar community on Facebook. With that, we're going to sign off. But Matt, it's been a great time. I appreciate you hopping on the show. Catch you guys next time.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's been fun.
Thanks, man.